Hello, hello, and welcome to Hygiene Elevated Conversations and Innovations. Today we have a fun podcast for you. We are joined by Rachel. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
All right, Rachel, we love hearing stories. So tell us your story about how you got into the dental world, where you practice, and kind of what type of practice you are in right now.
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. And I've been listening to so many episodes, and it was funny. I know you kind of always ask this to all your guests. And I'm like, I don't really have a fun story on how I got into it. So my
We're
grandpa,
done. We're done. Cut.
we're
Cut.
done, right? Jump out. My grandpa was a retired dentist, and it was actually really funny. He never had a good outlook on the dental industry. I mean, when he practiced, just kind of set the scope here in Canada, fillings were $5. They weren't
Wow.
wearing PPE. They were smoking in the operatories in the reception areas. Like, completely different world of dentistry at that time. So I went to a couple different post-secondaries and dropped out of all of them. And then for whatever reason, just felt pulled to jump into dental assisting. I completed my dental assisting program and then went into general dentistry for quite a few years, as well as orthodontics, and then journeyed into dental sales. And then from there, I opened the first teeth whitening studio in Canada. And yeah, we've been rocking and rolling since. And now I help dental clinics and independent hygiene clinics start offering safe and effective teeth whitening and actually make money on it, which is definitely something that's interesting because I'm sure you both remember. Do you even remember the couple pages that you were taught about teeth whitening in your education?
Not much.
I want to say yes. I want to say yes.
It's a little, right? And it's what? How to make take-home bleaching trays, and that's it. That's all. And then we recommend tell us the truth and provide us with a safe and effective knowledge. So yeah, I'm really excited to chat about the truth on teeth whitening.
That's okay. I'm excited for this conversation. You gave us so much just to even talk about there in the beginning. Okay, smoking in the waiting room. I don't know that I've heard that one before.
No?
But dare I say, is it any different than dental offices having like soda or sugary beverages out in the waiting area these days? Like, I feel like sugar is the new smoking. I've heard people say sitting is the new smoking, but I feel like sugar is the new smoking.
I can see that for sure.
So,
Yeah, my horror story from one of my professors in hygiene school was how she used to always get herpetic lesions on her fingers because they didn't wear gloves. And I'm like, that's disgusting.
oh my gosh.
I am just so happy for the world that we live in now. It's so much safer, better for us and better for the patients. But Rachel, when you shared your story so briefly, I just feel so proud of you. You're obviously a very ambitious person and someone who is able to see things through, because a lot of us have ideas, but in order to see something through to completion takes a special set of skills. So I'm sure the people that you mentor are really happy to have your guidance to help them implement those things. But I'm a little curious, before we get into what you're currently doing, how you went from dental assisting to sales. Was that like a networking thing? Did you apply through like LinkedIn or Indeed? How did you get into dental sales?
Yeah, and that's a great question because I'm sure a lot of your audience are either considering going into dental sales or get out of the op, right? Is dental sales. So it was back in 2017, 2018. So LinkedIn was an Indeed ad. I applied. It was with a company. You could compare it to like probably companies that you're used to kind of in the dental, like similar to like a Henry Schein or a Patterson. It was just a little bit of a smaller distributor. And yeah, lots and lots of dental background, because kudos to those sales reps that don't. That would be so hard, because I'm sure you are with a technical question before, and being on the flip end, like you would have to self-teach yourself those things if you didn't have that background, right? Like it would be a whole scope of like an dental supplies.
Yes, that's always something I'm amazed whenever, you're walking the trade show floor, you're talking to these reps and like they don't have any dental background and they're trying to speak the jargon to you and it's just like you're doing great. I really admire you because I know this is not I went to school for this and you did not. So I do always have admiration for people that have gone through
So
that
can I,
self-taught process.
yeah. Can I ask Rachel, so what skills set did you learn from that dental sales job that you feel like is helping you with your current roles?
Yeah, so many. Like being an entrepreneur, I mean, you have to learn resilience, which you definitely do in sales. I love it. And I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but in the sales world, we call the receptionist the gatekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
And say if you're looking for a certain staff member, they will hide them. So I handed this receptionist a flyer, and the next day the dentist called. I missed you. Like, we would love to kind of chat about how you can help us reduce our costs. He goes, I found your flyer in the garbage. Pretty much straight up told me that the receptionist just threw it right in the garbage, didn't even try to give. Resilience definitely is a huge thing. Getting told no all the time, that is something that you definitely come across all the time. And, we're all taught at different schools, also have different hands-on approaches that we prefer. This isn't just has very specific ways on how they do something. So you also have to get used to thinking it would do something. Doesn't mean that it still can't be done safe and effective from a different approach. And it's really building that mindset on how you can help, either adjusting something or adding in a different product to make it easier for them. So it's really resistance, and I would almost say like molding. You have to mold yourself to the situation.
That's awesome. Sounds like you learned a lot of valuable lessons there.
Yes, I would recommend sales to anybody in the dental industry if they are considering getting sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rachel, thank you for that insight into the sales aspect of things. I know I don't want to say the word sales is kind of taboo in the dental world, especially in the hygiene world. We think, oh, we can't talk sales, we can't talk sales, even though what we do in dentistry oftentimes really is sales. And Joffrey is very, very passionate about that. So I'm sure that's out of a lot of people's comfort zones. But I think it's an important skill to have. And I think you made a great case for being self-motivated and getting past those hard no's and the gatekeepers in the dental community. Yes, they're tough. So let's talk whitening. This is your bread and butter, the things that we aren't necessarily really taught about. So talk to me about the difference of HP and CP whitening gels and what those are.
Yeah, amazing. So first thing is, anyone that wants to dive deeper into whitening, I would get this book off of Amazon. It's incredible. It's an evidence-based perspective, and it's the first textbook that has clinical trial studies for more chairside whitening. There's a lot of take-home whitening clinical trial studies on the market, but there's not as much chairside. So this book is incredible. Would definitely recommend at any time to read that. But if you're not familiar, first thing is, do you two know the difference? Like, if you were to see a carbamide number, would you think that it's the exact same strength as a hydrogen, or are you aware that it's completely different?
I didn't know we were doing a pop quiz, right?
I feel called out.
Yes,
Your
but I will
question makes
say,
me think they're not the same.
And I love this because I come across day in and day out is a lot of providers don't understand that hydrogen and carbamide are completely different. So they get caught up in marketing and they actually provide like not a great service to their patients. So carbamide is a form of hydrogen and carbamide is 3 times less as strong as hydrogen. So in the whitening world, 44% carbamide is very, very popular. And technicians, providers think that they're providing a very strong session for their client, when really 44% carbamide is just under 16% hydrogen. So if you think about that in our kind of our guidelines for peroxides, anytime you're working with under a 16% hydrogen, you don't even have to use a gum barrier. It's that light. So that just kind of shows you that there is a lot of misconceptions on the different percentages. And carbamide, I usually find, is the one that gets a big rep, kind of a negative, where a lot of providers think that carbamide is only good for take-home trays when they're working with lower percentage. But carbamide is actually a really great chairside gel to mix in with your hydrogens. So kind of back to your original question, Amanda, what's the difference? Hydrogen is your stronger peroxide. It's definitely a more pure substance and it's going to break down the quickest. So it has about a 3-hour breakdown oxidization process intrinsically, so like when it's in the dentin tubules, but it's still going to release the fastest. So that's why when you see a lot of big name brand products for chairside, it's usually straight hydrogens. And then anytime you go over 30% hydrogen, there's a great section in the Wilkins textbook about this, that you can actually start causing potentials for, we have enamel voids as well as false whites. So that just means that anytime you're going over 30% hydrogen, you are only dehydrating. And what's going to happen is you're going to increase your sensitivity off of those sessions. And in about 48 hours, when you're fully remineralized, your patient's going to fall back quite a bit. So it's what's called a false white. So hydrogens can be great, but they are usually used incorrectly majority of the time. So hydrogens are a great chairside for fast release, but they typically lead to more sensitivity. And then on the flip side, carbamide, not as strong, takes a lot longer to break down. So it oxidizes. It actually takes a full 24 hours. So that's why it is used a lot in take-home trays. But if we actually apply that chair side, that can give us some good extension. So it continues to oxidize and break down intrinsically again, especially on those areas that are trickier, especially like areas that are thicker. So think like gingival margins or areas like our cuspids that are usually quite thicker to begin with. And I don't know, you might start to notice this more now that we're chatting about it. Statistically, cuspids are always darker than the majority of our other anteriors. So carbamide's a secret weapon for sure to be laying down chair side so it gets some extended. So what's the difference? They're actually different in strength.
Ah. So now, would you like need the patient in the chair longer if you're using carbamide peroxide, or you're going to notice the results later?
Exactly. You're going to notice it later. You don't need to leave it on longer by any means. It's just you're going to be brighter within 24 hours, which is always super nice to have, opposed to the opposite, where clinically it's shown straight hydrogens, you're actually going to be not as bright in about 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
So with your process, I mean, how is that different? Because I mean, I've been in hygiene and dentistry 18 years, and I feel like there's just been a crazy explosion of this is only a professional thing to there are so many pop-up shops or places you can go to an esthetician shop and get your teeth whitened and like bedazzled at the same time. So how are you different, and how is your process different than like the whitening house around the corner from the dental office? Like, how would you go about differentiating yourself from those other places?
Yeah, no, this is such a fun question. I feel like it opens up the conversation of the first things first is why are our dental patients going to these locations to begin with, right? Why
Yes.
would they ever think leaving the dental office would be a good choice? And unfortunately, what's kind of happened is the dental industry has been held by a couple whitening brands over the years, and it's really pushed up the costs. Like, so through your different years of experience, Amanda, like, can you kind of think back on like how much you've seen in office whitening be charged at cost wise?
Yeah, $800.
Right? That definitely makes it tricky. What about you, Olivia? Have you kind of seen chairside whitening costs pretty dramatic?
Yeah, in New York, it's usually not quite that much right now. It's usually around $500 to $600, but
Yeah,
still,
so
it's pricey.
That's still expensive.
right?
Yeah.
So pretty much what's happened is due to these costs, well, our patients aren't booking them as much because obviously that is a lot for them and it's not covered by insurance. So our clinics stop really promoting it because it's not getting booked. And then if there's temps, etc., coming in, they're not even trained on how to do it because it's
Mhm.
not done as often in the office. So it's kind of been this slow cycle of the dental offices just kind of not caring about it, which has opened up the beauty industry. And this is the funnest part, is actually what's the difference between beauty whitening and dental whitening? Not much. As crazy as that sounds. Okay. So in North America and in Canada, cosmetic teeth whitening can be insured for up to 25% hydrogen. That's Zoom strength. So that means, I mean, depending, of course, every beauty location may or may not be sourcing correctly. I've definitely seen some beauty providers who are working with way over that percentage, but still 25% is super strong. You don't need to be going stronger than that. So what's the difference? Honestly, not much other than the specific brand name that they're using, because dental brands, of course, won't open to them. But they are sourcing a lot of decently made gels for sure. Because from a marketing end, if you have any listeners kind of in the back end, a lot of the manufacturing labs are probably making the exact same gel for the two different industries, right? So is it really that different? Typically, no, other than that percentage cap. And then from there, it really comes down to what types of lights they're using and also like the process that they're doing. Some are safe and effective, some are absolutely not, of course. But I think the real conversation needs to be around how can dental bring this back? And if dental brings it back, could it just stop the conversation altogether? And then our patients, if they don't have to pay $500 plus, then why would they ever leave the dental world for something like that, right?
No, I totally agree. It is bizarre that the aesthetics and the beauty industry has stolen something that was ours, but I feel like
Right?
you probably have a good point that they marketed it, whereas we're focused on restorative implants, perio, all these other things, that it is just a whole other market that we're maybe not going after as much as other areas. But so on that subject though, about the LED light and like laser, because that's something that you've seen around, is like
Yes.
laser whitening. What is that? Is that legitimate?
It's bullshit. Can I say that on this?
We'll just label it as PG-13.
So, truth be told, well, you've seen lasers in clinics. Lasers are typically used for like gingivectomies, etc. Yeah, you can use a real laser for teeth whitening, but not one dentist is like purchasing a laser for teeth whitening specifically, because why would they pay $5,000 plus for a piece of equipment to whiten teeth? They're only using a laser for whitening as a bonus add-on to the equipment that they have. So there are real lasers, but you in the dental industry, you are the only ones with them, and you're using them for a variety of other treatments. But when it comes to the beauty industry, etc., there is not one real laser teeth whitening technician in the beauty space, or say a dental professional offering this service outside of the dental office. It's only LED lights. That's it. That's all that they are.
It's interesting.
And they do nothing.
Yeah, they do nothing. I have seen, like, I have a laser. It is like a dinosaur of a laser, but this thing is a trooper. And it does say teeth whitening on there. And I'm like, how does that, do you know how a laser whitening works?
So the laser is kind of piggybacking off of the LED. So I love that you kind of mentioned like, are LEDs placebo effects? Okay, LED lights absolutely are not removing stain in any way, shape, or form, especially the mini take home lights. Yeah, those are definitely kind of BS for sure, but that's a marketing tack point at this point. But chair side specifically, LEDs and lasers would both be used for similar reasons. They're there to help get the tooth dehydrated so you're going to absorb quicker. So that's going to help us actually get the enamel rods to open up larger and then absorb through. So, will they help with absorption? Yes. Are they actually whitening the teeth? No. So it's kind of a catch 22 where they're there to accelerate your instant chairside results. And then, depending on what type of gel you're using, if it's photosensitive or not, it might actually need the light to actually start oxidizing and releasing. But yes, lights aren't removing stain in any way, shape, or form, but lasers and LEDs are both used to help start the absorption process on the tooth structure.
Very cool. So you had mentioned earlier that you could mix the two different kinds of gel. Do you have like a brand that you use where it's like pre-mixed? Are you mixing it on your own? Like, how is your protocol different than like the standard big company that most offices use?
Yeah, so here in Canada, there's a couple of different options or recommendations on laying down a straight hydrogen first and then remove it, then followed by a straight carbamide after. That's really common. You're getting the best of both worlds there. But then there also are 100% pre blended gel options as well, which are great because you're getting the two in the pre mixed. So there are quite a few on the market now that are growing in popularity for sure because of the limited sensitivity and also the extended results. So it's nice to see that the industry is slowly but surely changing, but there's still lots more to go.
Hmm, that's good.
You, Rachel, you are so passionate about whitening. I don't know if we caught, like, you had some negative in going into dentistry. How did you like just get into the niche of whitening?
Yeah, so in my dental sales journey, I got asked by an esthetician if she could buy teeth whitening from me. And I was like, no, like absolutely you cannot do that. Did some research. Yes, they can get cosmetic teeth whitening insurance. It's considered a personal care service, so they get public health audited, just like a normal esthetician would. So yes, you totally can do teeth whitening. And I thought, well, if an esthetician can do teeth whitening, why can't I do teeth whitening? So then I started and opened the first commercial space in Canada. And then, as I kind of mentioned, it's just been growing. And I think that's why I've gotten so passionate about it, is because, again, back to kind of our knowledge on, we're taught so little about it. It's been such a journey to actually learn about it to a full level, and like all the false information that we're told and taught. And then I think the other thing is just because there's been so many haters along the way since I'm only a dental assistant, that it's just pushed it farther of getting more. You have to be even like more knowledgeable about it because you're always talked down to about it because of your background. It's crazy.
I hate that. But we're so encouraged by your example and to see how knowledgeable and passionate you are. It's really beautiful. So if somebody wanted help, like how do you go about mentoring them or helping them improve their whitening processes?
Yeah, so they can reach out. We can have a discovery call. And typically, we really work with independent hygiene clinics and also dental clinics as well. And a lot of the time, usually is like the head hygienist on the hygiene team, etc., who's reaching out and saying, hey, like, we're working with this system, it's not working, or there is a whitening bar down the street that started, and now we're thinking that why aren't we doing this? So there's lots of motion in play for teeth whitening right now. And you book a discovery call, we chat, and then it really comes down to more or less education, finding the system that works best for your office, and also your market research. So great example on kind of how Amanda and Olivia, you've kind of seen two completely different prices. And that does come down to market research, making sure that you're pricing for your specific area. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can easily get your costs down significantly and provide great results. So we usually gear up for clinics to at least be doing one chair of whitening at least once a month, ideally pushing to once a week, and yeah, making real profits off of teeth whitening.
So I think in our space, like we have so much opportunity to talk to patients. And I mean, especially as a hygienist, we're like the only healthcare provider that gets an hour with our patients. So this is definitely an opportunity to be able to speak to them. But, there are those patients that, their teeth could be completely bombed and nothing hurts and they're fine. And then you have these patients that come in and they are like immaculate, white, just perfect, like nothing bleeds. And they're like, but I feel like I could be doing better. I feel like I could be whiter. And you're like, how? Like you are the sun when you come in. Like it's just blinding. But they want to do whitening. Like we've all had these patients that just don't see their teeth as white. So, but like obviously you're not just going to tell the patient, no, you're dumb. Like you're fine. Like that's probably not the right course to go. Like you don't want to be unethical. But how do you talk to a patient or help manage expectation for a patient that is wanting like veneer like results on natural, beautiful teeth?
Yeah, that's a great question. Also, because I'm sure you've seen it if you're scrolling TikTok or Instagram, etc. And there are these before and afters that do look like veneers, and you're like, how is that possible? So typically, it does come down to just setting the expectation and having your hygiene team be trained properly in exactly how the tooth absorption process works and how to gear that expectation, that all results vary, and that if it is done safe and effective, you'll be even brighter in that 24-hour period. And everyone has their natural stop point. If you're already quite bright and you do say one round of chairside whitening or a set of take-home trays and properly, then you still want to go brighter. That's a really great indicator that you're already at your natural brightness. So then it's having your hygiene team educated on how when you're at the natural brightness, what that looks like, and then chatting about, okay, if you're really not happy with your natural brightness, then that's the conversation of opening the door of your next step would be like cosmetic anterior options, right? Like the veneers, etc., and really explaining the differences between natural brightness and then also the veneer end. For the most part, that would probably be what your discussion would be. But it's tricky out there because social media makes everything look perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. So many things, so many elements has social media added to everything.
Yeah. So if somebody is like you, that maybe they're a dental assistant or a hygienist who wants to open their own whitening practice, what kind of systems do you feel like are important in place for maybe the person is not a good candidate for whitening? Maybe they have periodontal disease, maybe they have decay. Is there any like screening involved to make sure that the patient is ready for whitening?
Yeah, for sure. And it's always just remembering that if there's anything that's being flagged, is just referring back to their primary dental care provider and to have them confirm if they are the ideal candidate, as of course we can't be diagnosing. But from there, it's really making sure that your websites are set up for what is an ideal candidate and talking about good oral hygiene in general, and then pre-screen consent forms. And then from there, it's pretty rare that someone's still going to make it through and still not be an ideal candidate. But if that does happen, yeah, you're going to lose your chair time, but at least you can just refer them back to their primary care provider and make sure that they are on the right track before they move forward with anything.
Okay.
So knowing that you're kind of working in the space of like estheticians, the beauty industry as well as the dental industry, like would you say there's any sort of difference between spa whitening, dental whitening at all?
I would say it really sucks so much that since it's such an unregulated industry that there's no like governing bodies checking on products. So as I mentioned, I've seen it, I've come across it for sure. There are a lot of beauty industries who are working with say a 35% hydrogen, etc., which you would think would be comparable to, let's say, a 35% in the dental world. So technically they are the same strengths, but are they really the same makeup of product? Like, to be honest, a lot of these estheticians are importing from, say, spots like Alibaba,
Mm.
etc. So it's hard to say. Now, I should just mention I have come across hygiene clinics and dental clinics that do the same thing. So I shouldn't say that it is specifically one industry, but it comes down to, since it is so unregulated, do you know what products they're using? That's the hardest thing, is no. So is it really that different? I would say it is, comes down to the product like quality, and then from there it's coming down to, of course, how it's being done. Like 9 times out of 10, I would say typically you are seeing a lot of blanching at estheticians and at like solopreneur spaces. Either they're not laying down gingival barrier because they're in a self-admin area, or they are, say, just maybe not as skilled with intraorally, um, because, I mean, insurance will pretty much clear you with anything as long as you have a certificate. And then from there, they have their full coverage. And as you know, of course, there's going to be some companies and training programs that are going to be more legit than others. So I feel like unless we had a full regulation of like, there's specifics that have to be met at a beauty industry location, I would say it's more of like an application and safety concern, for just because you don't know where they're getting trained or what products they're using. If it was black and white where it was like specific regulations, you know that they're being trained properly, etc., then I would say it's really not that different, because peroxide's peroxide and LEDs are LEDs. But until there's that for sure that you know it's being done safe and effectively, I would say that's where the difference is right now.
Wow, and I can see you forming this governing body pretty soon, Rachel. That's what we're going to hear next from you. That would
It's
be so
true.
cool. To protect our patients, protect our community, it is important to have things regulated, but ultimately, consumers and patients really need to be careful with their own bodies and not just think about the price, but also think about just their health and their safety. I did have like another technical question when it comes to whitening, though. How do you feel about like in-office whitening combined with at-home trays? Do you feel like it's always necessary? Does it make a difference if they want to just come and do chairside whitening once a year, every 6 months, or is there a better way?
Yeah, so back to this textbook again. This textbook's incredible. They actually talk about the jumpstart technique, which has been clinically trialed throughout the world. And the best practice for all chairside teeth whitening is in chair session followed by take home automatically. So, best case, like the best practice is chairside session in chair with you, and then automatically doing take home trays, either dual trays or custom trays, depending on where you are. And then you're wearing those for 2 weeks, typically, why we are getting full close off from your chairside session, because you have opened up those pores quite a bit, like the tubulus. So you're going to get the best absorption over that 2 week period. So then that means that really, for the best B1 shade kept, you should do chairside followed by take home.
Totally
Oh,
agree.
mhm.
Totally agree. Would you say this is going to be a nuanced question of verbiage? Is there a technical difference between bleaching and whitening?
Yes, absolutely. So whitening is actually termed, if you look it up, is just like our extrinsic removal. So removing extrinsic stain with an abrasive. And of course, we could have the debate on what's a safe abrasive, but just for technical terms now, like how do you remove extrinsic stain? That's removing it with an abrasive agent. So if that's like a prophy paste, a pumice, our favorite, the charcoal toothpaste, just removing that extrinsic staining. And that's what whitening is actually deemed, is removing that extrinsic stain with abrasive agents. Bleaching is when you're actually using chemicals. So here in North America, most likely it's peroxides, like peroxide based gels, and that's where you're having that chemical reaction intrinsically, because of a lot of us might not be aware, but intrinsically is where we hold the majority of our consumption stain. So that's where we need our chemical agents to absorb in to our dentin tubules, oxidize out the stain molecules that have held there, and that's where we're going to get the full color change. So whitening and bleaching, even though we just automatically use whitening as the term, it's actually quite different. So little tip for anyone listening, you should be whitening and bleaching in both together in a chairside appointment.
I feel
Nice.
like, thank you for that explanation, because I feel like the last year, maybe I'm just slow, it dawned on me those two are not the same thing. Because, like, you see, whitening is used marketing for, I mean, practically every oral care product on the market is whitening. And I
Right?
was like, there's no way this is bleaching your teeth. And then I was like, wait a second, that's not the same
It's not.
thing. And so, yeah, I had that aha of like, okay, the two are not the same. And I just always assumed whitening is bleaching, and that is not the case. Like the two are not achieving the same goal in the same way. So it's very different. And so, yeah, because I was like, how in the world is this floss whitening? Give me a break. Like, that's not possible. But
Mhm,
knowing the definition that you just gave, that makes sense. So
mhm.
thank you
Yeah.
for that
Marketing.
confirmation. Yeah, marketing. Totally.
Yeah.
Verbiage marketing.
I also wanted to ask you about your post-op instructions, especially when you do chairside plus whitening trays. Are you really having them stay away from coffee and red wine and curry for the whole 2 weeks? What do you
This
tell
is
your patients?
this is so fun. We've actually been doing a lot of research on this topic right now because I was listening to a podcast. His name is totally going to disappear from me right now. He's a dentist in one of the states. I can't remember, but he was on a podcast and he was saying how actually staying away from staining foods and drinks after whitening is not needed. Like literally, there's no scientific research to back that you will pick up stain, because if we think about it, our stain comes from like extension of contact. It's not like, I'm going to drink an orange Gatorade right now and I'm going to be stained orange, right? It comes from over time consumption. So even though our tooth boards are opened for that period, would we actually absorb and hold the stain significantly more than if they were closed? So right now, I am deep diving into trying to get more info on this, because I think I might be one of the first kind of in this space to kind of call BS and start thinking that we don't need to be advising to stay away from staining foods and drinks or the white diet within the first 24 to 48 hours after chairside whitening, or as you mentioned, Olivia, like for those full 2 take home weeks. Like, do we actually need to be concerned about staining foods and drinks? If you asked me this a month ago, I would say absolutely, but now I'm really trying to think of it more scientifically, and it'll be interesting to see what you two think and also what your audience thinks on this topic too.
Mhm. Well, I can say I've done whitening, chairside whitening twice. And the first time I did it, I had a cherry right after, and I had a red spot on my tooth. And I was able to get it off. But that really scared me. But I love coffee. So for someone to say no coffee for 2 days, that is like so hard. But I also wanted to ask you about what you do about sensitivity, because the last time I did chairside whitening, I stopped after the second session because it was too sensitive for me.
Yeah, so really, sensitivity should never be an issue unless it's done improperly, which a lot of companies do. So you probably got sensitivity because it was a straight hydrogen, or also the LED lamp that they were using was producing a lot of heat. So your listeners have probably never thought of this before, but pulpal inflammation is actually a real concern, not just dentin hypersensitivity when it comes to teeth whitening, teeth bleaching. So that is probably what happened. Is you probably had a mixture from those straight hydrogens and then also from the light heat that came off. You probably started with some dentin hypersensitivity, and then if it got that sensitive that you had to stop, you weren't able to make it to the fourth round, then you probably started to get some pulpal inflammation. So what we practice in our locations, but then also when we gear up clinics to be doing it safe and effectively, is to be working with blended gels, to be working with LED lamps that produce ultrasonic technology, not light heat. So you aren't getting any of that sensitivity off of the heat. So you're not risking pulpal inflammation. And then also we're closing with a potassium nitrate. That's really helpful too. Some clinics, if they just have fluoride varnish kicking around, they'll close with fluoride. But for the most part, if it's done safe and effectively, sensitivity honestly isn't that big of a concern.
Interesting. All right, Rachel. This has been a very enlightening conversation. Slight pun intended, lightning in there. Thank you, Olivia. Could you summarize for our audience kind of the discussion that we had today with the hydrogen versus carbamide, and kind of give you a moment to wrap up our conversation here?
Yeah, so thank you so much again for having me on the show. And from there, anyone listening, I would love to work with you on how to make whitening safe and effective and profitable at your clinic. If you are a lead of it, like a hygiene team, or even if you do say own a clinic, would love to chat. But quick little roundup is currently what you're using right now in your dental clinic probably is causing sensitivity. You're probably in the chair for over 90 minutes. So let's get you down to no sensitivity, under 45 minutes of chair time, and also ensuring that you're making profits, that you're choosing blended gels over straight peroxides, as well as you are working with safe and effective LEDs or no LEDs, depending on what you want to work with, and also to make sure that you're whitening and bleaching in a chairside session. And from there, you are making sure that your patients are understanding that TikTok's fake.
Take home message: don't listen to TikTok.
Well, I can say as a hygienist I've been in the field for a long time now, I think it's 18 years now, I didn't go into this conversation about whitening that excited about whitening because, I'm more like a perio girl and operations, but you've gotten me excited and interested in whitening and you've taught me some new things. So I thank you so much, Rachel. And I think you're really an inspiration to anybody who wants to pursue anything. The stick-to-itiveness, the research, your passion is beautiful. So keep setting a great example for all of us.
Oh, thanks so much, Olivia.
Mhm.
Rachel, so you are in Ontario, but you're not limited just to Canada, correct? Like if there was a hygienist down the street in Utah that's like, hey, I want to open my own whitening bar, for instance, or they want to add it to their practice, can they contact you and you can help them?
You bet. Absolutely. I work exclusively throughout North America. We also work with Australia and New Zealand. We don't work with anyone in the UK, etc. As little side note, we could have a different discussion at a different time, but the European guidelines, they actually are really against peroxide. Little side note.
Mm.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, but yes, definitely would love to help, and along with the whitening journey.
Awesome. All right, Rachel, thank you so much. I think I echo Olivia. Like I wasn't not excited, but I learned a lot more than I anticipated. And thank you so much for your insight and your time. We look forward
Thanks.
to talking to you in the future.
Yes, thanks, Amanda. Bye.
Bye.
All
I
right,
don't know how to
ending.
get.
All right. The audio was so much better when you
Was
went to
it?
hotspot. Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
couple like moments that your video was a little off, but like the audio was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Well,
really good.
let me know if you need me to like voice over anything from the beginning. I can always send that to you too if it didn't turn out very well once you look back.
Okay. Joffrey does all the editing, so I'll let her know. And then go from there. Honestly, thank you so much. That was really insightful.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
it was
thank
great.
you. Amazing.
Do
And
you
then,
have an Instagram for your business?
yeah, you can follow me along at Mentor Rach. And then from there, I think, was there anything else you needed from me? You were going to send me an invoice. And then also, do you need like a headshot or anything like that?
Yes. The best headshot you have. Um,
Okay.
Joffrey is also well, Joffrey does everything but nothing at the same time. So she has the financial side of it. So she'll send you the invoice, and she'll do the editing. I think we're still finishing out our contract with Ansel.
Okay.
So you are in line. So don't expect this in probably the next 2 weeks, but probably in March, I
Awesome.
imagine, is when yours will get published. But please, if you're like, hey, what's going on, please feel free to reach out. Um, just, we're still growing. So growing pains happen.
Yes, well, kudos to you. That's incredible that you've gotten started and it's been a great platform and I love following
Thank
along
you.
and hopefully we can chat again soon in the future.
Yes, absolutely. Are you going to be at
Thank
Chicago
you.
midwinter at all?
Right now, we don't have any American trade shows on the books. We're hoping for 2026, but we will be
Okay.
through all the Canadian ones. I'm speaking at quite a few of them too.
Oh, cool. Well, cool.
Yeah, so it should be fun.
Awesome. Well, it was nice meeting you. I know we all have stuff to
Nice
do at
meeting
9 o'clock. Well, depending on what time zone you guys are all in. So
Yes, thank you so much. You guys have
Amazing.
a great day. Take
Yes,
we'll
care.
see you.
bye. Thank you.
Bye.
No, we'll stay on page.